So we realize now that every one of those people are going to be like, they're going to be like bugs, Now, not insects, but my mother, um, chaplain's wife, Marcel Hall, was invited by you, Alexis Johnson, the ambassador of uh, what in those days was Czechoslovakia. So I don't know whether it's like now the area of the Czech Republic. I think it is, where Prague is. So Mom went to Prague, and you know what a big deal it is to have speakers at myriad of different occasions. So Ambassador Johnson was very busy getting a lot of speakers together for different things. It being Christmas time, my mother she was very good at reading things. She did readings, she had lectures, and actually she delivered a lecture in Prague. And then I think it was around Christmas Eve or something like that, she read a book that was very popular in the day back in the 50s called The Littlest Angel. It's a kind of almost mythical story about this little child who died and went to heaven and never fit in. Of course, that's not the case in God's heaven. It's more like the author's idea of heaven. So the child was allowed to return and pick up a little box. And after that, he was just great. But there came a time when Jesus was going to be born, and so the heavenly hosts each were coming up with their own gifts, and not. It's according to the story, you'd be placed at a certain place in heaven, and the little boy decided to give his treasure, his little box of things like a butterfly and a few other things. Well, the story goes, and it's kind of a tear-jerking story. I mean, it's really kind of touching in a certain way. The box was accepted above all the other gifts. So the little kid thought it wasn't, so at the last moment he tried to pull it away, and he rolled in a little ball in front of the throne of God, and God said, well, this is the one, and it became the star that lit the way for the wise men. This is the story. Well, Mom read it very well. She did a great job, and the people loved it, including some of the staff, which were Czechoslovakian, and they, to this day, we have this little doll here. Now that Mom's passed away, they gave her a little doll dressed in the traditional costume of what was the area of Prague. But, back in those days, Prague was behind what Winston Churchill had termed the Iron Curtain. It was a nation that was part of the buffer states that the Soviet Union had set up between Russia and Western Europe. And so they had a kind of a low tolerance for leeway in human activity. A lot of people tend to think that this is a kind of an early manifestation of the Antichrist type of empire. So Mom had to realize that her room was bugged, as they call it, bugged. Now, not a bug, but it was a microphone that they actually had people, part of the servants actually monitored all the conversations in a central area, and all the rooms were presumed to have microphones in them hidden in certain discrete areas, which they call bugs. It's a vernacular. Now, every one of these people will be like a walking around bug for the Antichrist's surveillance teams. That's not all. You see, they will have no way of going back, no way of undoing what has been done, and they'll be under complete control. They will not be able to decide anything. They will not be able to have mercy. They will not be able to even be annoyed. It's going to be this horrific, controlled society. Now it's going to be the opposite during Jesus' dictatorship, which will be forever, by the way. In that dictatorship, everyone will have their own mind, although there will not be free moral agency. You see, people will learn righteousness however long it will take. And it's going to take these people on the outside of the heavenly kingdom a long time. That shows us that they are not under any kind of robotic control. But it's the opposite, you see. The opposite is the Antichrist's kingdom, where everybody will be under control who gets the mark. And you won't be able to buy and sell without it. So therefore, nobody will be able to exist in that society who is not marked. So this is really a horrific thing. And they've got to, they don't realize it, but we have to. The entity at the bottom of this is the devil himself. There will be no way of undoing what they do. And people are so shallow and so thoughtless when they just go along and do it. Jesus said, "Broad is the road that leadeth to destruction, and many there be that go thereat, or thereby, and that go on that road." And as I said in one of my sermons, Jockendly they trip along blythly on that broad road to destruction. Shallow and flippant, pointless, meaningless souls, easily swayed, just waiting to get the latest gadget. And boy, this gadget will really take them for a ride. Boy. And that's one reason, by the way, that they're having these corporate failures, is because the devil is taking these things over, and don't expect the devil's people to be honest. Don't expect them to be truthful. They're not going to do that. What kind of suckers will sit there and, "Oh, here's all my retirement money. I trust you implicitly." Come on, man. Whew. Besides, the best retirement you can have, buddy, is to get that faith cooking and to work together with the brothers and sisters in the harvest field, because there's no retirement in this army. So just get ready, because here we go. Ready or not, here we go. So you don't want to go home early in this kind of situation unless it's God's decision to take you out of it as a kind of a blessing. But anybody else, it's going to be a horrific way to go. But there's something very important that we will have that the enemy's people will not have. We will still have free moral agencies. Free moral agency, we will have a will. You have a will, And you can say no to the devil. And that's how you're going to defeat the devil. By your power to decide and to say no. As it says, submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. It says that in the book of James. It's chapter 4, verse 7. So, your power to say no, the power of the human will, is a great power, brothers and sisters. You know how it's pulled down, and people are put down for being willful. In a way, yeah, that is bad. But to use your will to resist evil is a great power, because if you do that, then there's nothing they can do except send you home early. And if they've got you that far into captivity, then I'll tell you what, it would be better to go home early than it would be to hang around in their clutches. But if you think you can escape, then that can be done if you got the faith for it. Okay, but this is going to be a horrific situation. A horrific situation indeed. Now, the people who have this brand, they're not going to have that kind of choice. They're not going to be able, from that point, to resist the devil. They didn't do that when they had the ability to do it and decide to do it. They certainly will not have the ability afterwards. So you see, these people are going to be more yielded to evil than anyone you ever imagined. It's something that the devil's been pretty annoyed at with human beings, because actually even his own people have been kind of difficult to deal with, hard to control, willfully doing their own thing and going out and sometimes doing what the devil wants when it suits their purpose. But the minute they get a little bit shook up or something, that's it. I could tell when I'm in a neighborhood. I can tell when there are people involved in trying not to go too far. They're getting messed up with the devil, but they don't want to go too far. And you know how I can tell? By the screams, the type and the manner of screams that emanate from certain places. There are usually about 3 or 4 of them, sometimes more, and they scream their lungs out. And you can hear it, because it's going on in just about every neighborhood on the face of the earth, especially in the United States. It used to be, the headquarters used to be out there in Egypt, but over the period of history it has moved around a little bit, and although the devil has headquarters in Jerusalem now, the United States is his main area. So we're going to take a break in the breakers here. Okay, that's once a person gets the mark parked on his bark, that's the end of it. He's never going to be able to turn around. They'll have to be eliminated, every one of them, and God's going to do that during the Battle of Armageddon. So there's no other way around that. That's how horrific this is. That's why it's so horrible to undergo that procedure. That's the last decision they ever make. They'll never be able to decide again. It's almost as though they die at that point. They think they're going to come to life, but as they're going to be coming to death. And it probably will be a hell in their brains. That's the way they want it. They seem so happy when they're bashing each other in their those big, huge rock parties they have where they beat the crap out of each other. So, excuse me. So, they're going to be completely done in by God during that battle in the plains of Megiddo, Armageddon. There will not be one marked man left, or woman. I don't think the children will have the mark. I think they're going to have to be a certain age first. And they will all have to be literally killed. And before any kind of Homeland Security begins to be up in arms about that, we don't do any killing. It's not going to be done here in this time. It's going to be done during the Battle of Armageddon. So, and by, although it'll be us, we'll be coming in from heaven on white horses. So, no white horse. If you don't see a white horse, a flying white horse with somebody on it, you don't have a thing to worry about. Because up until then, the only thing we have is apocalyptic protection. And for more on that, have a look at my book called Rescue, Volume 2. So, there will be the market of the pizza, the mark of the beast. And that's what it talks about in Revelations 13, how the false prophet of the Antichrist, his PR man, will cause everybody, great and small, rich and poor, bond and free, everyone to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead that they should neither buy nor sell, except they have the mark, the number of his name, and maybe even the electronics that goes along with it. And all these people will be executed. They'll be exterminated. They will be located and completely destroyed. There won't be one marked man or woman left after the Battle of Armageddon. During the millennium, there will be nobody around with the mark. Now, is that the soul? I don't think the soul gets the mark. I think it's just the body. So with the body out of the way, maybe the soul has a chance during the hereafter. So these people may not be as far gone as we think. They'll be totally far gone. They'll be totally gone here in this existence, in this world, the world of atoms and physical flesh. But after the redemption, you see, we're talking about redemption. That's a phase that the theological folks use. There'll be, the tribulation of the Antichrist. There'll be Armageddon, the millennium of Jesus, the meltdown, where all matter melts. There'll be the soft landing of actually the kingdom of God, a solid form, either pyramidical or cube, with 12 gates to the city. energy spheroids, like pearls, only probably about 2 or 3 stories big. And after the learning of righteousness, there are some other things in the distant future coming up before perhaps the cosmic colonization. And in between there's probably there are theological terms like universal reconciliation, total redemption, everything. There may even be a time when the devil himself repents and gets converted to whatever form he'll have during his final phase of righteousness. But that's not for us to say. Don't mess around with that right now. Wait until later. But you see, there is a chance for redemption. It may not be a total loss, but it's a total loss right here and now, you see, and horrific. And they're all going to have to be done in by God and by the Lamb who has a sword coming out of his mouth, that with it he might smite the nations. But you see, as far as them having any redemption later on, we don't really know about that. So it's pretty bleak, whatever the situation. Let's take a break in the breakers here.